Hi guys! Today I will show you how I make a silver bezel for cabochon gemstone, which is a stone that's flat on one side and round on the other. Disclaimer: I am using a small hand torch in this video. It would be better to use a bigger and stronger torch, but if you're like me and you can't be using that at the moment, the small butane torch will have to do for now. Okay, so let's get started. Here's what you will need. Cabochons, sterling silver sheet for the back plate of your desired gauge. Recommended would be between 24 to 20 gauge. Bezel wire of your desired gauge. Fine silver works great. Files and buffing sticks, half-round pliers, shears, pencil or center punch to mark the metal, optional permanent marker, torch, flux, solder, ideally hard, soldering block, charcoal one works great for me, solder pick and brass tweezers, quenching bowl with water and baking soda, optional bench bag, face mask, a bench or a table or a chair. You will need safe soldering station. The tools can vary, of course, but these are the basic ones that proved to be very useful to me every time. So let's take another look. There we go, there we go. Yeah, now let's start with the process. I place the gem on a flat surface and wrap the bezel strip around it. There are several ways to measure the bezel strip, and today I will show you this one. It's fairly easy to do when you're using fine silver strip because it's very soft and bends easily. I will check the fit around the stone so there are no gaps and make sure the strip overlaps. I will use the pencil to mark where I want to cut. I will try and place this mark a bit farther than a spot where the wire overlaps, so I have some extra metal in case I need to cut some off. Then I use metal shears to cut the strip. I will try my best to cut the straight line without additional tools. Ideally, you could use a mitre jig for that extremely straight cut. After cutting, I check the fit again and cut off the excess until the edges align perfectly. I am happy with these cuts here. They're straight and there are no gaps. If you need to fix the edges, you can always file them gently until they are aligned and there are no gaps. Just be careful not to remove too much that the bezel gets too small. That happens sometimes, but then you can use your half-round pliers to try and make it a bit bigger. Now I will prepare for soldering. I will close the edges together. At this point, the shape doesn't matter with the fine silver strip because it's soft and will be reshaped later after soldering, so just make sure you can get these edges flush together. This is the method of soldering that I prefer. There are a few methods depending on your preference and the project, but today I will show you how I solder a bezel like this. I add flux onto the area I will be soldering using a little brush. I've created the flux with the borax cone and a bit of water. I grab some hard solder that I cut into small pieces and place it onto the soldering board. I will melt and pick the solder with the solder pick. Then I will gradually and evenly heat up my bezel. It's not that visible on the video, but I'm directing my flame mostly at the charcoal brick and the area inside of the bezel, not directly at the metal. This helps me control the heat better, as the fine silver can melt very fast if you put your flame on it for too long. When the metal is hot enough, I will place the solder on the spot. I might focus my flame a bit more on this area now in a hit and run technique to avoid overheating. The solder will flow and join the edges of the stripe together. I use tweezers to grab the metal and quench it in the quenching bowl. Time to wipe and dry it with the clean and soft cloth. And here is the result. Looks like the edges are nicely soldered together. If there's any excess solder on the inside, I will use files or sanding stick to remove it. Now it's time to fit the bezel around the stone and reshape it. You can use the flat surface to help you shape the bezel, but make sure you are not bending the walls towards the stone. And check that you can fit the stone into the bezel, not just bezel on the stone. When setting, you will be placing the stone into the bezel from above, so you need to make sure it will get in without any problems. I am marking the top part of my bezel before I start sanding the bottom with the permanent marker, so I know which side is which. First, I will check how uneven is the bottom edge on the flat surface. I will see if there are many gaps. Then I will use medium sanding paper to make the bottom part even. I'm moving the bezel around the paper in the figure of 8. This way I will make sure it's even, and also don't push or press too hard so you won't squeeze or change the shape of your bezel again. Check the bottom again against the flat surface and make sure it's flush with no gaps. Time to prepare the backplate. To do that, I sand the surface and then clean it thoroughly with washing liquid and water to remove the dust and grease and anything that would stand in the way of the solder flow. Next step, fluxing the area. I'm fluxing the metal sheet and I put some on the bezel strip and I will put some more on the solder later on. So there's plenty and enough. I love using charcoal block for soldering because it reflects the heat and makes it easier to solder. It matters a lot when you're stuck with a tiny torch like that. Oh well. Anyway, now, please remember that this is a small butane torch and it's weak. And that is a decent size bezel I'm trying to solder here. So we'll see if that will work. I will definitely need more time to heat it up properly. And yes, I could have used a smaller bezel that would be mistake-proof, would surely work, and I wouldn't risk embarrassment, but I think some of you might want to see if it's possible to tackle a bigger project like that with the baby of a torch. So yeah, let's see. Heating, still heating. Moving my flame around, trying to control the flame so it's not too close, but at the right distance. Not placing my flame on the area for too long, realizing I have to heat the metal now, not just around it, because this is in fact taking too long and it's not looking good. Still heating. Yep, the metal is overheated and there will be a lovely fire stain for me to clean afterwards. Yay, but at least the solder has flown and we're home. Check that there are no gaps. If there are, you will need to quench, pickle and resolder. I am now fitting the stone again, praying everything is good. Oh, and if the back of your bezel isn't open, do not push your gem inside without placing some cord or floss first. The stone might get stuck and you will find yourself in a bit of a trouble. By the way, the metal is white because it's been cleaned in the solution called pickle. And that's it. Our bezel is done and I am so happy that little torch handled this well. Otherwise, it would be a very disappointing video, wouldn't it? The next step now would be to use the jeweler's saw to cut the bezel out of the metal sheet. And then file, sand, clean, pre-polish, add details and many other steps depending on your design. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. This simple gesture helps me make more videos, keep this channel going, and I am very grateful for that. I'm not a professionally trained jeweler or goldsmith. I am learning myself, and today I wanted to share one way of how I do things. I am not claiming that I know it all, nor that my way is the only right way. I hope you can approach this video keeping that in mind, and hopefully I was able to help some of you or at least provide entertainment. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what other step-by-step videos you'd like to see, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!